Hey, welcome into the Irish NFL show. Welcome in. It's the night after the night before. I am broken, both mentally and physically, after watching those two games yesterday because everybody knows who I support. Welcome in, Colin, Mark, Brian. Colin, how are you getting on? All good?
Um, yeah, I suppose a bit of time today to reflect on those games. Like you, definitely feeling it. There was an awful lot of caffeine today, and looking forward to having the opportunity to chat through the weekend's action.
Brian, how's it going? How's the form?
Good, good. I thought the Saints Bucks game would be the more eventful of the two, and that would be the game that would, have more of the talking points today. But not to be the case. The first game last night, there's a lot to get through on that game. It was actually a very enjoyable game.
And obviously, Tom Brady's biggest fan, doesn't matter who. He's almost like the NBA fan that supports LeBron James wherever he goes. It's Mark. Mark, welcome in.
Oh, I love the way you bring that up, Michael. Well, only one of us did pick the Bucks. I'm sure that might get mentioned 3 or 4 times during the episode. But yeah, the first game was actually just brilliant drama. Like, brilliant drama all the way through. Great to watch. But, God, I need some sleep at some stage as well. So, we need to recover. We need to build up the powers now for the AFC and NFC Championship games next week again. So, at least we've got a week to get ready for that.
Yes, sir.
Michael, Mark reminds me of the Ronaldo fans, when he left United and he went to Madrid, and then all of a sudden they were Madrid fans, and then they're Juventus fans,
Well, guys, come on. I'm still a Patriots fan, but as I said last week, I have a lot of love for, Tom Brady. Unfortunately, it's not like Michael, whose head has been turned so much by the Bills that literally Broncos County is now singing to him.
Country.
They're singing to you, Michael. They say, Michael, they are taking you away.
By the way, why only me and Mark get the memo, boys? I mean, come on. Coming to a good shop near you, maybe before our big week in 2 weeks, massive week in 2 weeks. Just while you're watching this, if you are finding this out for the first time, if you are an NFL fan, we have got shows Wednesday to Sunday this week. So some great guests lined up. We'll announce it tomorrow night, hopefully. Here's the results from last night. The Browns almost shocked the world in Kansas City, but still couldn't, even when Mahomes was out. We'll talk about that in a minute. And the Bucks done the business against the Saints, and obviously both Kansas City and the Bucks move on. The Chiefs will play Josh Allen and the Bills in the late game on Sunday night, and the Bucks will go to Wisconsin and will play Aaron Rodgers in the early game, if I'm correct, on Sunday. Well, early, 8 o'clock. And that's where it goes. Who will make it to Tampa? Our big show is on Sunday morning with some great content. Championship Sunday show, and I hope you'll join us. But let's jump right into that Patrick Mahomes less Kansas City Chiefs performance. Obviously, the Chiefs, Colin, winning 22-17. When Mahomes went down with a suspected concussion and was ruled out for the game, as a Broncos fan, take your hat off for a minute. But did you think this is it? This is what we've been waiting for, or you just sort of said no?
No, because as I have to say, as a Broncos fan, I remember that when he got injured last year, and they brought in Matt Moore, and they still continued on. And Andy Reid is Andy Reid, and the Chiefs do Chiefs things. The Browns were very good. That's the first thing to say. They showed that resilience that we spoke about in the lead up to it, time and time again. Given everything that had happened, and I'm sure there might be some interesting debates about different aspects of the game. To me, what stood out, one of the things that stood out was the fact that the Browns, though, for some reason decided they'd try their star cornerback on Travis Kelce. And as I said to Brian, it was a bit like Snooki marking Shaq. It didn't work. It was Travis Kelce is just fantastic, and he's actually the one who was getting the crowd G'd up when Mahomes was out. Look, the play calling at the end that's just Andy Reid. He carries his cojones in a wheelbarrow to put his quarterback in shotgun on 4th and inches. kudos to him. He's a guy who copped an awful lot of flack for time management at one point, but there's only one team in the AFC who's ever had 3 home championship games, and that's an Andy Reid-led Chiefs. And there's only one team in the NFC who's had that same, and that is an Andy Reid-led Eagles. So Andy Reid is the common denominator, and when you put him together with Mahomes and Kelsey and Hill, they're fantastic. The other probably standout for me is Darrell Williams, who came in as just a kind of a backup running back. In fairness to him, all the focus was on Le'Veon Bell, given the injuries to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and everyone thought he'd be, but that wasn't the case. Williams was the guy, almost 100 yards, and had a very important role to play. So that to me, I'm sure the non-touchdown will maybe touched on by my 2 colleagues in the not too distant future.
Yeah, yesterday morning during the previous show, I discussed in particular Steve Spagnuolo, and whilst he was never a good head coach in the league to date, he's always been quite a good coordinator. And he dialed it up in the playoffs for the Giants. He dialed it up for last year for the Chiefs. And again yesterday, they held the Browns to less than 101 yards running. And what we've talked about, Hunt and Chubb, or Chubb and Hunt, and the accountancy firm, or whatever Marcus called them, the grave diggers, they didn't do anything yesterday. They were in a grave yesterday because of that defense. They had a great game, and I saw that coming. And everybody talks about the Chiefs' offense, but this season, as I touched on yesterday, a number of games where the Chiefs won because their defense kept them in the games. And yeah, spot on Williams, ran for 78 yards. And when the pressure was on, when Mahomes came out of the game in the third quarter because the suspected concussion, you then look at how they're going to manage the game. And Henny, in fairness to him, he had 6 of 8 for 66 yards. And whilst that doesn't sound like a lot of numbers, bear in mind he played in week 17. So he's had a game recently. He's been in a game. They didn't win that game against the Chargers. You see quarterbacks coming in during the season who haven't played for quite a while, who are backups, and they're very rusty. He didn't look rusty when he came in. He looked like someone who'd played a game and was ready to go in. So, fairness to the Chiefs, Mahomes is their key player, on the offense, their main player. He did enough to make sure they got over the line, and ultimately that's all that mattered yesterday. And that 4th and 1 play was quite gutsy, but it's the kind of Andy Reid thing that we're used to. And whilst every fan seemed to know what was going to happen, the most overhyped commentator in America didn't seem to know, Tony Romo, who said there was absolutely no way they were going to call a play when it was very evident they were going to call a play.
Glad to announce Tony Romo was our big guest on Thursday night.
I'll drop off. So the former Cowboy got it wrong again. Yeah, and he got it wrong on the Henry run as well, where he said it was a 4th down and it wasn't. But anyway, fair play to the Browns. They gave them a game, but I never really felt they were going to get over the line. And I think Stefanski, whilst they won last week, it was his 4th playoff game. I felt we saw the inexperience at times with some bad calls in terms of challenges and different bits in terms of taking 4 minutes off the clock and punting on 4th and 9 in a game where if you lose, you go home.
Yeah, I think the incident, we'll call it, at the end of the first half, we should talk about separately, generally, because I'd say we'd all have different thoughts and opinions on that. I think Stefanski generally called a reasonable game, but that decision to make that challenge in the 4th quarter, burning that timeout, was appalling, really, and that really cost them. That cost them dearly at the end. You've got to treat those timeouts in the game scenarios where it's win or go home as precious, and for the gain it would have got him, it was not, in my mind, the right call to make at the time. The Chiefs, in fairness, rushed to the line quickly, forcing him into a quick decision, and he just called wrong. But, like players, coaches will go away and say, what could we have done better? I agree, Chubb and Hunt were the grave diggers. They were held in check. But Baker Mayfield actually had a really good game in many ways. In terms of what you want from Baker Mayfield, don't make any stupid mistakes. Make the throws on 3rd down when you need. Tony Romo was raving about him at halftime, and I was going, what's he talking about? They're losing 19-3. Where's he seeing all this from? But actually, you go back through the drives, And yes, he wasn't sustaining them, but he actually brought more to bear in the third and fourth quarters, made them look dangerous, and didn't lose them or cost them the game, which, for a Browns quarterback in the first instance is saying a lot. But very simply, guys, for the Chiefs, in my mind, this is just going to go down as the Taylor Swift game. Pretty easy.
Go on.
Well, you can break down the whole story of the game just using Taylor Swift songs. Because the Chiefs were zipping up and down with style, and they looked gorgeous, almost as good as Michael did when he was 15. Patrick Mahomes was the man, but then he proved delicate, and they weren't yet out of the woods. So Andy Reid had a blank space, and Any Given Sunday wrote his name. And when it turned out that Patrick, he couldn't shake it off, and he told Andy, for this game, we're never, ever getting back together. Well, then Baker and the Browns, they looked like they were trouble, and they wondered what was going to be the story of us. But at the end of the day, Chad Henne was ready for it. And when the sparks fly, he told everyone to calm down. And on 3rd and 14, he rode in on his white horse. Him and Andy proved fearless. And all they needed in the end was 22 points.
I think we'll just go around again because I think we'll have to make a few points here because I need to make my point. Obviously, I'm biased with the team I support, but, that's helmet to helmet. I don't care what anybody says. That guy wasn't even looking at the ball. You can watch it from every replay. And, obviously, Brian's talking about Tony Romo. And as a Giants fan, of course he's going to say that. I'm a Broncos fan. I'm going to say that about the Chiefs. That was helmet to helmet. I don't know why that tweet's still up. Look, nothing but respect for the Chiefs. They won the game, but the Browns lost that game in the fourth quarter yesterday, boys. Two or three, I think twice, with 10 minutes to go and with 5 minutes to go, they had the ball. And what did Baker do on that second occasion? He done nothing. He's only got himself to blame. And if the Chiefs now go and beat Josh Allen, well, it's not going to happen. But if the Chiefs go and beat the Bills next week, there'll be a DVD of that performance. Or America's game, I don't know. Colin, do you want to chip in on that holding call? Or
yeah, look, I don't have an issue actually with the touchback aspect of it. I know that's an issue, but I think there are. Otherwise, you get into this whole thing about maybe players fumble, and I think more for me the issue is the helmet to helmet, and you can see Sorensen doesn't even try and use his arms. He knows exactly what he's doing, right? And again, like they called him Dirty Dad in the Kansas City tweet. Like, this is a guy who has a history of this. If this had been a one-off, you kind of go, oh, maybe he didn't mean it. This is a guy who got done earlier in the season for targeting Philip Lindsay. This is a guy who has 3 fines this year, 3 fines in previous years, multiple fines in other years. Like, he has a history of this. That was the frustrating part on it. I still think the Chiefs would have won. They were the better team, but it absolutely was deliberate, and I didn't think there was any need for the tweet in relation to it. But that shouldn't take away from the fact that Brian is absolutely right. The defensive performance was really, really excellent. And Honey Badger he's a phenomenal. He's an absolute ball hawk. And my fear is that if Justin Simmons isn't re-signed by the Broncos, it's going to be like the Honey Badger thing. He's going to go elsewhere. He's going to get picked up by a top team, because that signing by the Chiefs to get him in has absolutely, revolutionized the way in which they can play, because he is a guy who can make plays on any down, and he's somebody QBs are acutely aware of all the time.
Just on the play itself, I'm not going to get into the reputation of the player. I'll leave that to the AFC West supporters to have that conversation, because they're more used to that, to going through that type of stuff. Like, for example, if you want to get into an NFC East conversation on dirty players, I can do that as well. But the point I make is around the officiating. The line judge, in a split second, if you watch that play, we've looked at freeze frames of that play since yesterday. That's fair enough. But the reality is that play is done so quick. The timing of that play is so quick. It's very difficult for that line judge in that instance to see that happen so quickly and call it. The league obviously has to clean up on that because it's gone to review to do the touchback. But it didn't even go to review. Sorry, the decision was made, but they looked at it because it's a turnover to the other team. It's been looked at. That's what's been looked at. They're not looking at the incident. And most people are coming on social media, even including their group, their Twitter page, saying, where's the flag? Why didn't they not review it? It's not in the rule book. That needs to be addressed. That's the bigger issue here. And a side note, I actually think in a strange way, Mahomes getting injured is actually benefit the Chiefs in another way, because he was playing with a toe injury, and if he had continued to play with the toe injury, the likelihood is he would have done more damage, before next week's game. The reality is he probably is going to play next week. Josh Allen got a concussion last season in the fourth quarter against the Patriots. He played the following Sunday against Tennessee. Yeah. They're already saying this evening on some of the networks and various shows that he's come out of the situation yesterday. Okay, the expectation is he'll be ready for next Sunday. If he had to continue to play, would that toe injury have got more difficult in terms of him bouncing on it? In all likelihood, probably yes. So he could have saved themselves in a strange way.
And he basically tweeted as well, Mark, literally a minute after the game. So unless he's got a fantastic social media manager like myself, or else he's just ready to go.
I was about to say, I thought you were going to out yourself as his personal social media manager, Michael. But
another big guest on Thursday night, Mark.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I'd reiterate what Brian's saying about the officiating there. The line judge in that situation is looking at the ball. He's looking at the ball and he's looking at the feet. He's trying to focus on, is the ball crossing the line, is the feet going out of bounds and everything. And bear in mind, Sorensen's hit is on the opposite side to the line judge. The receiver is actually, his head is between him and Sorensen. So we can't see exactly where contact has taken place, in fairness to him. Is it head-to-head? Absolutely. In fairness, in the moment, I didn't see it, but on our group WhatsApp chat, like when they went to the outbreak, Colin was instantly texting, was that not helmet to helmet? Rewind, check, went, oh my God, it is. And we come out of commercial and Gene Steratore saying, actually what should have happened here and blah, blah, blah. But I disagree with Brian that they should make this reviewable. We saw what happened a couple of years ago in the Saints-Rams game and said, pass interference needs to be reviewable. What about the law of unintended consequences? They've intentionally been conservative with replay for 20, 25 years. You don't want to undermine the officials on the ground. You don't want to start getting into subjective calling as to whether it was targeting, whether it was intentional, and things like this. So I think, in fairness, maybe helmet to helmet, obviously it's a bit more of a factual matter, but whether it's the infliction of force where he's lowered the head using it as a weapon, they are subjective matters. And I think if you start putting that into replay, you start making it even more complicated, even more difficult, and even more a scenario that we could get the wrong decisions and the like. Equally, guys, I'm going to say something that's a bit controversial. I'm like Colin, I don't mind the touchback rule. It's like protect the ball down there. If you fumble the ball, the defense should be punished. The offense should be punished. So tough luck. Everything else goes in the offense's favor. So I've no issue with the rule. But can we stop with the narrative that some people are perpetuating that, if it wasn't for that, the Browns would have won the game? We're talking about a play with a minute and a bit left to go in the second half. It's not like it was a play in the fourth quarter with nothing left to play anymore. They still would have gone in 16-10 down or 19-10 down, as the Chiefs proved. They had enough time to go down and get a field goal. And who's to say then the Chiefs would have called the second half the same way? They might have been more aggressive. They would have played different plays. Patrick Mahomes might not have got injured, for Christ's sake. You can't take one individual event and say that it would not have had a knock-on effect of everything else which subsequently followed it. Penalty, yes. Should they have got the touchdown? Yes. Do I actually think it would have made a difference? No.
Michael, sorry, can I jump back in? Just relating to Mark saying that he disagrees around the challenging of the decision and whether it should be looked at in terms of changing the rules. What I mean from that point of view is when they look at a particular replay, they should not be identifying that one particular situation in that moment. They should have a rounded situation when they look at it and say, yeah, we got the force decision right, but what we've established on the replay is helmet to helmet, so there is a flag. I'm not saying we should be going back to last year where we had a mad wide receiver, a pass interference rule which was being challenged willy-nilly. I'm just thinking they look at the incident, they look at the whole play as a whole and see what comes from that.
Okay. Well, just going on what Mark said there now, obviously as a Broncos fan, I had a horrible night last night, and it is what it is, and I took multiple L's last night in many ways. But I disagree with what Mark said. If they had got the touchdown, they had the ball started the second half, they probably would have scored. They would have had momentum. I'd even go as far as saying that Henny run has killed me. That is up there for me, and I'll publicly say it. I was near tears when he ran, because that for me was like, I just can't take another year of them winning that. But that's why Buffalo's going to win on Sunday. But we'll talk about that on Sunday. And it just is what it is. And we're obviously, look, there are obviously great fans of every team. For example, look at the Irish Chiefs fan group on Twitter. Great guy as well. Browns felt really bad. I don't know if anybody's seen it yesterday. Paul, is it Paul Cahill, the Browns fan, put a video out yesterday. It went viral. Fantastic for him. Felt sorry for him last night. And then obviously you've got great fans as well around Ireland and the UK. So I'm finding it hard to be on the fence today, because I thought, sure, look, if Brady wins, at least maybe the Browns might win. But when it's a double doink, it's not easy. Mark, you've one point to make before we go on.
Yeah, Michael. It's just, I feel for you in that pain and everything. So I just wanted to remind you that the Chiefs have won their division the last 5 years in a row. They've gone to the AFC Championship game at home for 3 years, as Colin mentioned it. It's kind of the beginning of a real dynasty. But just wanted to leave that with you.
It's not
a moment of pain there.
See, this is the thing, right? And how many Super Bowls have they won in that time?
Well, they've won one. They're still in the running.
Won one, right? And how many Super Bowls has Aaron Rodgers won in the last 10 years?
He's won one, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so it's not a dinner. Patriots is. And look, I know Mahomes will probably go and win it again, and then we can talk about that. But not until then. Give me some time at least to sit. It's a hard nut. Like how I got out of bed this morning, boys, it's more of a topic for the show than anything else. But sure, look, we'll say no more. The Bucks 30-20 winners against the Saints. Now, fair play to any man, woman, or child that watched this whole game last night, because it went on, lads. It went on quite late. It went about 4 a.m. Like maybe I'm wrong there, Colin. It went on quite late, didn't it, last night?
It definitely went on far too long if you're Drew Brees.
We have got an interview though with Tom Brady. He spoke this earlier on about going to the possibility of playing in the cold in Lambeau next week. Do you want to see it? Or?
Exclusive, is it? Exclusive, yeah.
Exclusive interview. This is Tom Brady on the prospect of playing in Lambeau Field next week.
Well, the mother says we had to go anyway. We hadn't much a choice in the matter. But sure,
it's a cold journey to school this morning.
Oh God, you wouldn't be long getting frostbite. And these new shocks that I got as well. You see, I had to turn the hill just up to me. What do I say? I had to turn the hill up to me.
Just a disclaimer, nobody sounds like that around where I live, so just heads up.
Imagine if Tom Brady actually sounded like that. That would be quite funny, actually.
The Maverick said it had to go. Look, that's going to be a great game, and it's the early game as well on Sunday. Obviously, wow, who's playing? Brady, Rodgers in Lambeau. That's going to be a great game. I can't wait for that, because the Packers, Colin, are flying. They are flying, so I'm really looking forward to that. But obviously, you're taking last night, Colin. It's the end of an era as well for Breeze.
And I mean the end of an era, but Tom Brady never seems to, and Tom Brady has just he's personified everything that has annoyed me for years. But seeing him play in another jersey helps, and the fact that he's in his 9th conference game in 10 years, you got to give respect to that. He's ridiculous. Like you keep wanting it not to work, but he keeps finding ways to just prove people wrong. He got beaten up when those two teams played in the regular season. He ensured that didn't happen last night. And Drew Brees didn't attempt a pass of more than 20 yards last night. It was a sad way to end what is undoubtedly a Hall of Fame career, but it hasn't really worked over the past couple of years. Obviously, outside of 2018 that we were talking about just a little while ago. But apart from that was the one championship game since the Super Bowl win. So for various reasons, and we mentioned Rodgers, but contrast that to to Brady's record, it does show just how stark it is. 9 times in 10 years, and everyone else is just playing catch up. Michael Thomas was anonymous, a guy who, seemed like the Saints have a really big off season coming up because they have to make cuts due to the cap. They obviously now have to decide what they're going to do at quarterback, because that's it for Breeze. So does Hill become that'll be interesting. But on the Bucks, their defense was brilliant. Devin White came back from the COVID protocols and he played like a Tasmanian devil. He was everywhere. And when Drew Brees looks back on his last game, he will have nightmares about it, Devin White, because he was brilliant. But all of the Bucks defense, they absolutely smothered the Saints, and I think it's going to be a really fascinating game next week. Again, the weather is not going to bother a man who played in nor'easters up in Foxborough, but I suppose, and we'll touch it more next week. They did play earlier in the year, and Tampa won that handsomely. But the Saints had beaten up the Bucks twice, and look how that turned out last night.
Yeah, we're talking about respect for Brady. I assume you're talking about his career, not his performance last night. Because to be honest, the respect should be going to the Bucks defense. You've alluded to it. Devin White, but Antoine Winfield, second round pick. Crucial knockout with the ball in the third quarter. And what people have got away from today was where that game was at that particular time. Because at halftime, the momentum was with the Bucks gone level. Fairness to the Saints, nice methodical drive at the start of the second half, results with a touchdown. The Bucks couldn't move the ball in the next drive. Saints get the ball back and they're driving again. And Cook catches the third down, going towards the 40. You're looking at roughly another 10 yards, field goal potentially, 10-point game. That fumble changed the dynamic of the whole game. And Breeze wasn't good. And then Murphy bunting, interceptions. Devin White, you're right, fantastic. Winfield was excellent. That Bucks defense really stood up last night. And I'm not sure whether they were so good or, as we discussed, the fact that Breeze was just so poor and he looked like the quarterback that's certainly coming to do ours the end of his career. And was the Bucks scored after 3 drives, they were given great field position. In particular, the first one, 2 yards out. The next one was similar enough. And then obviously the one from Cook as well. So, fair play to the Bucks. But the Saints had their opportunities. That's 3 years in a row in the playoffs. The Saints have been favourites going into a playoff game at home, and they haven't got the job done. Maybe it is a good time that Breeze is moving on and they can just reset and look at the quarterback situation, because I actually don't think it's the answers there with Taysom Hill, and albeit he came in and threw a touchdown last night, Jameis Winston. I don't think they're the answers in the long run. I certainly think they should be considering getting themselves in the sweepstakes for Deshaun Watson, which is starting to look inevitable now that he will move on.
Drew Brees, we're going to give out about Aaron Rodgers and, obviously not getting to the promised land again. Equally, Drew Brees, when he looks back at the career, there is a lot of near misses. The Minnesota Miracle, other games that in the playoffs, even the Beastquake moment in 2010, there are other games and other playoff games they'll feel like they should have won and should have done more in when it really mattered. But yeah, last night, Devin White, it wasn't just the fumble recovery, it was the interception, it was the 11 tackles. He was like a man possessed. We said before the game, he'd be an important part of trying to keep that New Orleans offense in check. Michael Thomas didn't get a catch, but equally on the Bucs side, the Saints defense still played strong. Mike Evans got 1 catch against Lattimore. It was for a touchdown, but even that was severely contested, and they really shut him out of the game. Gronk didn't get going. I mean, Cameron Brate was the highest most number of catches and most yards, I think, for the Bucs, which kind of shows how well the Saints defense played them. And yeah, I concur that probably more credit belongs to the Bucks defense. But bear in mind, Brady did what he always does, which is first, quarterback, do no harm. Keep the ball secure. In the last matchup, he threw 3 interceptions. He was determined not to be the reason and not to let them be defeated this time. And, I think it's somewhat poetic. He threw for 199 yards. He was the 199th pick. That's a nice way to round things off, isn't it? And as Colin says, 9 out of 10 championship games, 14 championship games out of 21 seasons he's had. And as Mike was showing the photo, I thought that was a lovely moment at the end there as well, between two players going back to college. They played against each other, obviously, Purdue and Michigan. And Brady throwing a corner fade to Drew Brees' kid in the end zone as well, which is probably a clip he'll treasure for a while. But to the point about Brees and it not working the last few years, Winston coming in and having to come in to play the exact same play that Chicago ran against the Saints last week, by the way, which I thought was brilliant by Peyton saying, that's good, I'll just copy that. But him having to come in to throw that 58-yarder said it all. It would be him or Taysom Hill to throw the long, deep passes because they don't trust or didn't trust Drew Brees' long arm. Great career, Hall of Fame career, deserved Super Bowl winner. Sad to see him go out like that. But as I called beforehand when I picked the Bucks, sometimes for the legends, it isn't all sparkles and roses and the wonderful swan song into the future, into their retirement. One last thing, just looking a little bit ahead to the NFC Championship game, and it's a cracker. And the best thing about these two matchups is there literally, guys, is no bad Super Bowls left. There is no bad Super Bowl matchup.
So the Bills would be a good Super Bowl team.
Imagine the Bills versus Brady. They're trying to break the streak, and they're going up with a guy who's got a 25-3 record. Imagine Josh Allen against Aaron Rodgers. There is literally Patrick Mahomes against Rodgers or Brady. There is literally no bad Super Bowl matchup. We're in the treat. Last 3 games of the season, when it all counts, we should have 3 cracking games. And I'm dying for that. I'm really looking forward to that piece. But one little nugget that's playing in my mind, we're talking about history and we're talking about kind of resonances and memories in relation to it. Brady's favorite player growing up was always Joe Cool, Joe Montana. And what did Joe Montana do at the end of his career? He left the 49ers and he went to KC. And his first year, he got KC to the AFC Championship game, lost, and never got back again, and toiled off into obscurity or retirement. Not quite obscurity, retirement. Brady now, first season in the other conference, gets to the NFC Championship game. If you're a Packers fan, you're thinking, don't worry, Tom, we'll make sure history repeats itself there. But yeah, he's TB12. He is the number 12 for a reason.
Brian.
Michael, do you know what I noticed about Brady and the beautiful moments we saw at the end of the game last night? It's always uncanny the way it's when he wins. It never seems to happen, though, when he loses. He never seems to hang around to say congratulations to the likes of Nick Foles or Goff, when they won down in Tampa. Oh, it just seems to be when he's won. It'd be interesting to see if he's open to congratulating Mr. Rogers next weekend if the Pack managed to, turn them over.
But just to check on that, I think Brady, he's lost 68 games in his career or something like that. I can't remember. It's not that many considering how many he's won. But I think you'll find he's congratulated the opposing quarterback in probably about 66 of them. There have been a couple of instances where, in the heat of the moment, he's missed it. But I think
give you a few more if you want to.
And certainly, there's no quarterbacks that say, "Oh, he's a horrible little individual." It's just sad and bitter Giants fans that say that. Sorry.
66 was a great year for football. Canton, I was born.
Yeah, I think there was a World Cup or something then as well, apparently.
I don't know. I was born in the 90s, boys. I picked the Saints last night to win. Sorry, you know what? I'll just go back on what you boys are saying there, talking about, I think somebody mentioned the word Nick Foles there. Drew Brees retires with the same amount of rings as Nick Foles. Eli Manning has more rings than Drew Brees. We just all take a second, just maybe to consider.
Yet they'll be pushing for Brees to be in the Hall of Fame before Arena.
In terms of Brees' stats, It just seems it's almost like whenever Vincent Company went to Man City or David Silva went to Man City, just wasted their careers at a plastic club. It's different for Breeze because the Saints have always been a fantastic franchise. I just feel for him because I feel like he deserves so much more from his career. He is an unbelievable quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. I just feel bad he only has one ring, and I actually thought that he would go out with one more. But what got me very early in the game last night, boys, even though I had to watch half of it back because I fell asleep during it, was that the Saints, especially Drew Brees last night, was just... It was like whenever you ask your dad, when you're like 10 years old, here, do you want to go out and play football? And he kicks the ball a couple of times, and then he realizes I can't do any more here. That's what it was like. And it was extremely disappointing. And I feel today that Brady, because there's not a lot of Bucks fans in Ireland, boys. I know we've got good friends over Bucks UK, so I can say this because it's all a bit of crack. I just don't think Brady last night, whoop-de-doo. I mean, they had Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill there. Drew Brees last night, three picks, 134 yards for one touchdown. Disappointing. And I feel if I was him, you'd be thinking, should I have just retired last year? And genuinely at that point, and going on what Brian said there, this is a huge season in New Orleans because they're going to have to, as you've talked about there, about the cap and stuff, they're going to have to find a quarterback. They haven't got a quarterback there. If they want Drew Lock, they can have him, as far as I'm concerned. And I just don't see how that's going to fix anytime soon. But that's the beauty of this league. You have good years, you have bad years. Kansas City had 15 to 20 bad years, and now they're back. And eventually they'll be gone again. A bit like Liverpool, who look like they might be gone a bit quicker than everybody else, but we'll say no more in that sense. I mean, it'll be interesting to see where Deshaun Watson goes. Maybe we can talk about that in a second. But I, for one, I'm very excited for the AFC Championship game. For me, I just don't see how Brady can get at Aaron Rodgers in Lambeau for the first time since 2008. I mean, I said before who's going to win the Super Bowl, but yeah, I just don't see. I mean, I think the Packers will get now. I didn't think they would. Like I thought they would, but I didn't really think. Oh, they're going to get to Tampa. I think it's a non-subject now. Brady's not getting there against Packers. If Brady wins in Lambeau on Sunday, he's winning the Super Bowl.
Do you know another thing? Sorry, Michael. Another thing is if the Bucks win next weekend, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they'll be the first team to ever play the Super Bowl in their own stadium. The Vikings came close a few years ago, didn't turn up in Philadelphia. Yeah, it was early in the week. I would be leaning towards the Packers. I certainly don't think we'll see a similar scenario to what we saw when the Vikings had that opportunity a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and Michael, one other thing. I mean, Brady was written off when they were going to Patrick Mahomes and Arrowhead a couple of years ago. He tends to come out with a surprising performance or stimulates his team and encourages his team to a surprising performance when you least expect it. One thing Brady has never done, and this is a testament, I suppose, to his years with the Pats being usually the first or second seed, he's never taken a team from fifth or sixth seedings and won 3 games in a row to get to the Super Bowl in the first instance. In fact, it's been done to him by teams like the Giants and like the Eagles who have made it to the Super Bowl and upset him there. But now he's gone on the road to Washington, tick that one off the box, gone on the road to the Saints, tick that one off the box. And going up to Lambeau, I agree, the Packers are deserved favourites. Their performance on Saturday was comprehensive. They were a balanced team on offense. They have an extremely effective defense, and they have one of the greatest pure throwers of all time in Aaron Rodgers. And this year, I mean, his TDs to interception ratio was 10-1. But just never write off Brady in these circumstances. He will do what his team needs him to do, whether that's throwing deep 50 times in the game or dinking and dunking for 2 yards a game to give them the best chance to win. And he won't be scared of Lambeau. He won't be scared of Rodgers. And he'll, look to do the business. We're not getting to our championship picks yet, guys. I know it's just,
I was going to say, while we have content all week, apart from tomorrow, the one thing that we're actually not talking about as a group here now on the Monday is who's going to get. And I'll happily start because I think it's important to talk about it, boys. It's important to get the opinions out early doors and make a fool of yourself like I did last night. I was 2-2, or I was 2-0 on Saturday night as well. Obviously, Championship Sunday, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. For me, I think I'll not say who's going to win the Super Bowl, but it'll be Green Bay against Buffalo. Colin, what do you think?
Didn't we do Super Bowl picks like way back? It'd be interesting
I can't remember.
dig
Yeah,
that out because I'm pretty sure I went Chiefs Packers. Look, I think an awful lot can happen in the NFL in almost a week, especially this season, and so I let's see. But if I'm Tampa, I'm looking at what we did in week 6, and Aaron Rodgers had a game he will want to forget. I think one of the only other time was when he had to face the Broncos in 2015, and we held him to 77 yards. Outside of that week 6 game, two picks, sacked 5 times. I mean, that's what this Tampa defense is serious business as well. That's where it's really interesting because these are 4 teams that can play offense and defense, obviously while they're 4 that are there. But it's that Tampa defense is nasty too. So let's see. I don't think anyone is clear favorites. Yes, you would expect the Packers and the Chiefs, but I don't think you could say with certainty who's going to the Super Bowl.
No, I agree with Colin. I think the 2 games are very balanced, and you only have to look at. We're not into having betting conversations, but if you look at the line that's been put in front of us for the first game, it's reflective of how close even the bookies think it's going to be. It's 3.5 point favorites to the Packers. A lot of people probably would have expected that to be more similar to what it was on Saturday with a touchdown. And coming to the second game, yeah, it's all about Mahomes and the situation when he plays next weekend. If he plays next weekend, personally, I still don't think the Bills will beat the Chiefs.
He'll play.
Okay, well then, if on the basis he's playing, I can't see how the Bills will go in and beat the Chiefs because I'm like a broken on record now. That Chiefs defense does not get the respect it deserves, and they will do a job on Josh Allen.
Yeah, I mean, we go from a game last night where Methuselah beat Tiresias, basically, in the Battle of the Old Men. And in the NFC Championship game, we're going to have 2 more old men facing off. So we've got the age on the NFC and the Fountain of Youth on the AFC, which is a nice reversal from what we used to have for many, many years. I actually, when we did our Super Bowl picks, I know exactly who I picked. I picked at the time the Chiefs and the Packers to make the Super Bowl. And I said at the time it's going to be 2 number 1 picks. It's not 2 number 1 seeds. It's not exactly inventive. But rarely we get this. We actually have at the championship game, and it should always be like this, but it's not always, the 4 best teams this year. The 4 most balanced teams, the 4 most potent teams on offense and defense. I don't think, honestly, I know, yes, Saints fans and Browns fans and others will disagree, but objectively speaking, I think truly we've ended up with the right championship games. Of course, the Bills can do it. Of course, the Bills can knock over the Chiefs, especially if Mahomes doesn't play. But even if Mahomes does play, they've proved explosive this year and they proved that capability. And equally, the Bucs, as I've already outlined, I think they've got enough to go to Lambeau and do it. But you want us to make picks now, Michael? I think it's geez.
No, it's all good. I think we're going to touch on
too
a different
topic.
I just wanted to make it public knowledge. I've been very critical on Aaron Rodgers. In the same way I've been very critical on the Chiefs, so I'm just going to say it now and hope that it bites me in the other way around now. But I think the Packers will win at the weekend. Who knows what will happen between now and Sunday.
Michael, can I just check? Did you not say last night or Saturday that you thought the Saints were going to win by at least 14 points?
Yeah,
well?
I thought Breeze would find it.
I'm just wondering whether the Packers would be happy you picked them. That's what
that's what I'm hoping to happen. But that's what I was saying about my disappointment. I was really excited for that game all night. I thought, I'll get over this Browns Chiefs game. But yeah, it's a bit disappointed. I was very disappointed in Breeze. I mean, it's not his fault. It is what it is. But I guess it is what it is. Really quickly, boys, let's end it tonight on this. Deshaun Watson, it's really heating up now, and we didn't really have a chance to talk about it on the show. We obviously talked about it last one. I know we talked about it last Monday night, but obviously now a lot of talk coming out of Houston, a lot of talk coming out of the NFL in general about the future of Deshaun Watson. Colin, I'm going to start with you. Has your opinion changed? I can't remember because there was a few boys here last week that said he's not going anywhere. Has your opinion changed, Colin, in regards to Deshaun Watson, or what do you think might happen now?
No, I think he. I think what I said last week. I think they should let him. I think they should let him go. Get the haul, right? Because I said Barcelona hung on to Messi, and that just hasn't worked.
Oh, yeah.
If he is deeply, deeply unhappy, he wants out. He has made that abundantly clear, and the stories coming out of the Texans just get more and more ridiculous when you hear them. So I suppose the interesting thing is what kind of package does it take to get him? Because Bill O'Brien is not there anymore. So you imagine they're going to actually look to get something decent. Miami, obviously, is what the stories are, that's his preferred destination because he likes the setup with Flores. He likes the fact that there are no state income taxes. Who wouldn't? But depending, like the Jets actually have what looks like a very competent head coach in place now. Can their front office step up? Could they put something together? Because with the hole that the Jets have 2 picks in the first round this year and next year. So the Jets could make something happen potentially. I think everyone is going to want to pick up the phone and at least inquire. Would the Saints love it? Yeah, but I don't think the Saints can put a package together in order to get him. I think he leaves, but I think this will be a really interesting offseason, right? Because stories today that all is not well in the Rams camp. Never made sense, the contract that they gave to Jared Goff. Obviously, with the Broncos, Woody Page says that Drew Lock is coming back, but then there are stories that Elway and Fangio, I thought Elway was no longer the GM, but Elway and Fangio are pushing for an experienced QB to come in to push Drew Lock. There's going to be all sorts. What do the Jets do? Do they make the play? Do they stick with Darnold? Do they look to pick? It's like this is a really interesting off season, and if Watson goes, which I think he will, wow, just this would, whoever he goes to instantly, I think, the Jets don't become a contender, but Miami certainly become a contender. He probably makes 20 of the 32 teams contenders.
Yeah, I do think he's going to go, and I think as the week has progressed, it's starting to look a lot more likely than it was even last week when we discussed it. But last week when we had the discussion, to me, it was more about, not so much about Watson, it was more about the Texans going forward. No first-round pick, no second-round pick. They're missing picks next year. Their cap is in a bad place. They have to do this deal. They really do. And whoever they do the deal with, whether it's the Jets, they should be asking for that quarterback in return. If it's the Dolphins, they should be saying, we want Tua. If it's the Jets, we want Sam Darnold. And if they don't go down that route, hear me out. If they don't go down that route and they take the second pick off the Jets or the third pick off the Dolphins, they're still going to have an immediate opportunity to get a quarterback. Because Fields looks like, whilst he's not a Lawrence, he looks very much like he can be a very good quarterback in the NFL. And then if it's the Broncos, for example, you package it up with Drew Lock. There's so many opportunities there. So it's not so much about Sean Watson for me wanting to get out of there. It's about the Texans, if they want to rebuild and have a proper opportunity to challenge in the division in the next 2 to 3 years, they have to do the deal.
It feels almost kind of, if somebody's listening again and say, well, why are they talking about Deshaun Watson again? They talked about him last week. It is so rare for a quarterback of this talent at this young age, at a reasonable enough contract when you consider the ongoing inflation, to become available or to be potentially available or to potentially be able to trade for him. I mean, genuinely, I think the closest comparison I can think of, and I'm not comparing Kirk Cousins in this because he's far superior to this, is probably something like Peyton Manning, who was towards the end of the season, the free agency, foo-far that obviously preceded his eventual selection of the Denver Broncos. But Watson is younger. He's fitter. He's faster. He has shown his capabilities and abilities in games. Yes, like we've been criticizing Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson for, he hasn't yet won a playoff game. But, well, he needs a team around him that can help him get into that playoffs. And unfortunately, Bill O'Brien and the brain trust there in Houston Texans did not do things to help him there. Certainly the Tunsil trade looks appalling in retrospect. The DeAndre Hopkins trade will go down in the history of worst trades ever. I was the one that said he isn't being traded. They don't let an asset like that walk out the door. I still maintain that with a caveat. The caveat is this. Nick Caserio, who's just walked in there, knows about getting rid of assets from Bill Belichick and his time in the Patriots. He also knows about picking up distressed assets. And the one thing he won't want to do is to make Deshaun appear like a distressed asset that they're dying to offload and get shortchanged on the compensation. So I expect to see a big media push over the next while from the Texans, going very quiet, not responding, not engaging Deshaun's, speculation and his Twitter account and his stirring the pot, if you like, and trying to settle it all down and say, no, he's our quarterback. Give it a couple of months. Might a deal be done? Yeah, if it's possible, but he needs to make everyone believe that they're going to hold on to him or that there's big competition for him to get the best possible haul. But they can still hold him to it all. And that's where my money still sits. He's still the Texans quarterback on the 1st of September, 2021.
Guys, now I just want to say we've discussed teams who have an abundance of picks, first-round picks this year, next year. You know what the NFL's like. There will be a GM that will sell his mother and his granny and all to get him, and you'll find some team that will just give up madness in terms of picks this year, picks next year. Teams who have been in the playoffs this year. There must be something wrong with my screen. It keeps flashing. There will be a general manager who will go gung-ho, look at his team and say, we've got an opportunity to move up to the next level and go to the Super Bowl. The Saints, for example, they need a quarterback. You've got the Bears who made the playoffs. The Bears are a reasonably good team. They might think he could move them on to another level and challenge the Packers. There will be some general manager that will go absolutely nuts and put absolutely madness on the table.
Where's Mike Ditka when you need him? Ricky Williams. That's all you know.
I think for me, man, it's gonna be interesting. Sorry, Mark, is that your point made? Sorry, apologies, I didn't see it. A couple of comments here. Thank you, Chris. I'm jealous that your team's in the game this weekend. Join us this weekend for a big preview as well. Hopefully get somebody from the Packers on. Spoiler alert, let's see what happens. Going back on the Deshaun Watson talk, I think the Broncos have got a good chance of getting him. Obviously having that new GM in that wants to make his mark because he's only got 12 months, Colin, until he's kicked out, potentially, with a new owner. So why not? He's literally got nothing to lose. I don't know, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, a 4 for a 5th, and a player.
And a quarterback.
I mean, if you're the Texans, do you want Drew Lock?
There's no way Drew Lock. There's no way he's going to be hanging around if Watson's coming in.
No, of course. But he might go somewhere else. He might be traded somewhere else.
Because I don't think he's going to be traded, but if he is traded, Caserio will do the same thing Belichick did with Garoppolo. He won't want him in the same conference and potentially make him look stupid. So look at the NFC
comment there. Sorry, Mark. I just seen a comment there. The Broncos don't have supporting cast. They've got Melvin Gordon, Philip Lindsay, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler, Noah Fant, Albert Okwuegbunam, and the top 10 draft pick. I mean, you've got a supporting cast in terms of offense. Sorry, Mark, going ahead. I was triggered there. No, I never understand what you're saying there. They can improve.
But I was just saying, look to get him out of the AFC. They won't want to be reminded of their mistake if they did trade him and everything. And in fact, this is the youth movement on the AFC. We're talking about the young quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Trevor Lawrence is coming into the AFC next year. Sam Darnold still isn't too old. Deshaun Watson probably wants to get out of the AFC because the NFC might be where the opportunities are in the next while as well. So if you in the screens you put up there, the 49ers could be the random one on that. Casero and the Patriots, there are a few still around, and the Texans wouldn't mind being reunited with Jimmy Garoppolo. So that could be an interesting selection, shall we say. Imagine the RPO under the Kyle Shanahan offense. Interesting thing for Niners fans.
And Michael, I don't want to get into off-season reviews because I'm sure at some stage we'll come to discussing each team individually. But you have put up a very good argument as to why the Broncos' offense should be really good. You know, some of the players that you've called out they really are good players in their own right. So that, to me, then ultimately comes back to Drew Lock isn't good enough. Yeah.
Okay, so our last topic tonight is our last topic tonight.
I think we could have a fair conversation on it. I think his vote would probably have.
I think
but you might agree.
It's a fair point. It's a fair argument to make. Let's see what happens over the next few months. Last topic that I want to make, lads, is this tonight. A lot of talk that Sean McVay and Jared Goff, their relationship has soured a little over the last few weeks and over the season. Colin, do you think the Rams might move on from Goff, or do you think this is a marriage that will be fixed after a little bit of counselling?
The problem for them is the contract that he has, and he, unlike Deshaun Watson, is not going to be in demand. Goff's contract never made sense. I mean, he's an average to good quarterback, and that's but he's not a great quarterback. I think they have done really well to when they got the Super Bowl. It always felt like it wasn't Goff putting the team on his back. It doesn't feel like there had been many games where it has been Goff putting the team on his back. Clearly things aren't right when you hear McVay, who is usually pretty chipper about his players, and he says he's asked, will he be the QB? He's QB for now. That's pretty telling comment in this media age. The Rams also, of course, have lost their defensive coordinator, who's gone to the Chargers, which is an interesting move in and of itself. McVay usually one who identifies talent. I mean, he brought him in to replace Wade, and he did a very good job there. I think it'll be much more difficult for them to move on from Goff. But what they may look to do is bring in some competition for Goff, because they, with the players they have, and especially that defense, they're a serious team. They just need good quarterback play. I think Peyton Manning messed and Peyton and the Broncos winning the Super Bowl in 2015 messed with a lot of teams' heads. We've talked about that before. This is a copycat league. Teams thought that they just could put anyone at QB, and if your defense was good enough, you'd win. But the league has changed, and this year showed it again. Fewer penalties, especially against offensive line guys. Points have gone up again. You have to score points. You still have to be able to stop teams, but you have to score points, and the Rams have issues there. They've got a much. It's not as big a problem as losing a superstar QB, but when you have a QB who you've given a superstar contract to, yeah, they're lumbered with it. So then you've got the Carson Wentz contract, where that all of that is going on in the background. Think about like how big a deal that was just a few weeks ago, and now there are more big stories. That's this league. There's always something happening.
Yeah, the league in which was there when the Broncos won the Super Bowl certainly has moved on. It's a young man's game, and it's a young man's quarterback game. The quarterbacks today, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes next week, both can run with the ball. We've seen what Lamar Jackson can do. For me, with the Rams, I see a scenario similar to what Baltimore did a couple of years ago. They were drafting late. They took a flyer on Lamar Jackson. I think they'll take a flyer on a quarterback, leave him there in the background potentially as a year to get up to speed with the offense, get up to speed of how McVay wants things done. And gradually, as the season goes along, if the Rams are potentially out of the playoffs, you'll see a circumstance, or not necessarily out of playoffs. I mean, the Ravens went to the playoffs with Lamar Jackson in his first year, but I could see a scenario where the quarterback would be moved in during the season, and he would obviously then be the future of the team. That's how I see it going, because as Collins alludes to, there is no other way they can go. They're not gonna axe him. They're not gonna, unless they seek a trade. And when you've got the likes of Deshaun Watson out there, who's going to be offering up the goods for Goff? Not many teams. So I think that's the circumstance that I see unfolding as the months go on.
I just want to say this is how social media can create a blitz, because I think this all started with an infamous picture of Jared Goff just waiting outside the Rams complex, and he was standing there just with his thumb out like that, and people thought he was hitching a lift, but he was just trying to recover from his injury. So, boom, boom. There's more serious point I want to make though is when in the last 3 years have the Rams actually given a good contract on the second contract out? They gave a crazy contract to Gurley, which we all looked at the time and said, well, that doesn't really make sense. And they had to redo and ultimately cut him. He's now with the Falcons. They gave a crazy contract to Brandon Cooks at the time for $80 million. He's now a Texan, and they've given a crazy contract to Jared Goff, which now in retrospect doesn't look like such a good idea at the same time. They don't structure their contracts very well. They don't manage their cap very well there. So in fairness, I'd be looking very heavily at the front office on this, because they have hamstrung their capabilities and they've hamstrung their team in relation to that as well. So, coaches need to review their performance each season. Players need to review their performance each season. GMs and front offices need to do that as well. And seriously, Los Angeles Rams, you've been losing at this for a few years now. So buck up.
I think when Mark says buck up, you better buck up, or else there'll be consequences. Obviously, Sean McVay stopping short of guaranteeing his place in the team next year. I think that's nuts. That is actually not really being talked about because of the current situation as much as it maybe should be. I think if we were outside of the season, that would be huge news. Look, Sean McVay is 4 years older than me, and that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to leave it at that, just for your thoughts tonight. I think Goff will be there. I think Goff will be starting week 1. I think it's a non-issue, to be honest. But yeah.
He will start week 1, but to Brian, I think Brian might have a point. Will he start week 15, 16? That's the they can't move. They can't move on. I don't think, but they have to do something. And I'm already looking forward though to our next show and more dad jokes and dad pep talks from Mark.
Absolutely. And our next one, we just before we go, we've got Championship Sunday on Sunday morning. The big preview before the 2 big championship games, and then we've got content all week now apart from tomorrow. We've got shows on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday. We have got a couple of famous faces both in Ireland and the UK, so looking forward to recording the content this week, boys, with you, and looking forward to you all enjoying it as well, folks. And I want to thank everybody for watching. Looking forward to chatting to you all again live on we'll see if it's live on Championship Sunday morning, boys. Hope you all have a good night. Yeah, all good?
Yep, thank you.
Excellent. And I will leave you, before I go, just to remind you about the podcast, which is now, it'll be available in about 24 minutes. Well, depending on Brian's Wi-Fi, it'll be available before halftime on Sunday. But search the Irish NFL Show on all your good podcast forms. You can check us out on the Pundit Arena Facebook page as well. And you can also check us out on Twitter as well, and on Instagram. Search Irish NFL Show. For that, boys, I'm going to leave us tonight with the man of the hour, Drew Brees. Good night.